Hello and welcome to our LinkedIn Live today with Daphne from HubSpot. I'm super excited. We have a top record of people signing up to this podcast, so the pressure is on us, Daphne, to deliver today. I'm so excited to have you here. Today, we're going to talk about a customer success topic. So, you will know that the Artist Circus is all about revenue, and customer success is not to be missed in this revenue organization, so to say. And we have a very exciting topic, which is around create and how to measure value for customers. And I remember when I asked Daphne, what do you want to talk about? And I picked a couple of things like from, reactive to proactive, how to start in customer success and how to create value. And she said, that's the one we definitely need to speak about that one. So I'm super stoked to have you here today, Daphne. We'll start with a little bit of an introduction. I'll start with myself. My name is Cara, one of the co-hosts here at the Artist Circus podcast and LinkedIn Live now also. And I'm covering the topics of customer success, as you will have seen already now. I'm a team lead in customer success at Workflex. We are also a SaaS company. And today I have with me one of the biggest and my inspiration. I'm a big fangirl. You will see it and feel it in this LinkedIn Live. Daphne from HubSpot. Hi, Daphne. It's so nice to have you here.
Hi, Cara. I am so excited to be here and talk about my favorite topic, which is creating and delivering value for customers. Daphne Costa Lopez, as you can see here on the screen, Global Director of Strategic Accounts Customer Success at HubSpot. Also host of a podcast called This is Growth, where I talk to CS and revenue experts globally about topics I'm interested in and I think all customer success teams should be thinking about. I also have a newsletter by the same name, This is Growth, that goes out every Friday to over 11,000 CS professionals on how to build and scale their customer success teams, where I talk ad infinitum about value. So excited to be here with you and your audience today.
Yes, thank you for being here and taking the time. Super excited. So maybe let's hop into the topic. First of all, a couple of housekeeping rules. So you are to ask questions, please. So this is why we do a LinkedIn Live. I think it's super cool to listen to podcasts on Spotify and Apple Music and so on. But this is real. So we are live here. We're live sitting here and you're able to ask questions. Take the opportunity. Daphne is super experienced. So if you have questions, just leave them in the comments and interact with us. And don't be shy to be the first one. So, but maybe, Daphne, let's start just a little bit general, like customer success. We know that at least my LinkedIn is full of customer success, but that's probably because I work in customer success and I follow a lot of customer success people. But let's maybe just go back to one basic thing, like why do you think customer success is so important nowadays, especially for SaaS companies? And why are we talking today here and make it specifically a topic?
Yeah, I love this question. And while I have a biased opinion, right, I think is one that's anchored on data, revenue, facts, reality of the SaaS business. If you think about why customer success exists, we are here to guide the customer on the post-sales journey to help them realize value, the value that we promise them, right? We promise them through our marketing efforts, our sales efforts. So we're here to realize that value and help the customer get results, get ROI from your product, with the goal, of course, of renewing and expanding that customer so they can continue to stay a customer with us. And I think if you look, like, if you peel the onion and you look at SaaS economics metrics, a lot of companies are measuring the cost of acquiring customer, or CAC. And this is a metric that really helps you understand how much money you actually spend on bringing new customers on board. And that's a really important investment metric, efficiency metric. And that metric has been going up. So it means that it's harder and harder to acquire new customers. The usual channels that we've used, inbound, marketing, emails, ads, all of those channels are losing effectiveness. So it's becoming harder and more expensive to acquire customers, which means that retaining customers and having them in your business for longer is really, really important. So when you think about lifetime value, which is how much you make from a customer based on how many months or how many years they stay with you, that metric is extremely important today. And customer success teams are here to expand the lifetime value of a customer. So in a world where CAC is going up and it's becoming harder and more expensive to acquire customers, the role of customer success is even more important. And just to kind of put a wrap on all of this, not only a customer success team and function and philosophy in your business helps you retain customers and grow customers in a more efficient way, it also helps you attract more customers, right? So if you think about advocacy, if you think about referrals, your current customers are your biggest marketing advocates, and they are going to tell those stories. They're going to move companies and go to other businesses and advocate for your product to be part of that stack. So it's extremely important to also build that advocacy and referral arm to your customer success business. So again, you can fuel the engine of revenue.
Certainly, and that's what I love so much about your approach when you talk about customer success, right? So I come from an account management role, which is, you know, sort of sales and customer success, so the hunter and the farmer in one person. So I'm, you know, I love sales too, and I've always liked to see customer success, as you say, as a revenue engine, and not just like a department where you say, hey, we're here to make customers happy, because making customers happy might be nice, but it doesn't, you know, hit the right metrics, and it's probably also not the right metric to look at. But since we talked today about value, let's maybe define first, what do we mean by value? And you've also mentioned value now. What is value for you?
Yeah. So I think this is a place where a lot of customer success teams struggle, is this definition of value. And what I hear very often is that value is different for every customer, right? When a customer comes to the door, one wants to increase their revenue, the other ones wants to improve their operational margins. Everybody will have a different angle. However, what I like to think about is, if you are in a company where you sell a product or a service, you go to market with a proposition, right? You're building a product, you're building a service to solve specific problems or seize specific opportunities. What are those? Because that is what's attracting your customer, right? So if I think about HubSpot, in HubSpot, we have 5 different products or a platform, and different personas will be attracted to different parts of our product for different reasons. Sometimes one persona is attracted to all of our products. But ultimately, we have to think about, okay, our marketing product, what does it help people do? How do we go to market, and what problems do we tell the world that we solve? Like, one of them is helping customers improve their demand, right? To increase the demand. So then you need to be able to prove that you're doing that. And how do you do that? You find a metric that shows that demand is going up. And that might be the number of qualified leads that your customers get, or in HubSpot's case, we look at marketing contacts, which are contacts that you are engaging with from a marketing perspective. So you have to find the metrics that help you measure whether the value proposition that you went to market with, if you are able to deliver that to your customer. And the customer success team isn't going to define this by themselves, right? If you go back to what I said at the start, which is like, we're building products to solve these problems, the core of the value we deliver to the world comes from our product strategy. So the customer success team sitting in their desk, talking to their customers every day, they can do, of course, some work in relation to helping customers map their goals, define KPIs. Like we should be doing all of that. But to actually define from a company strategy perspective what value we deliver for customers, that will come from a leadership, that will come from strategy. And I think we can learn from each other. For example, if we're building products and we're putting a value proposition in the world, but we're getting customers through our marketing and sales efforts that they're saying that they need something else, or that they're using our products for different use cases that we thought that they would use it for, we need to feed that information back to our product team, find ways of measuring those new use cases or building for those new use cases. So it's a partnership. You don't create value in CS or define value from your individual contributor seat, even from a leadership standpoint. It's a cross-functional partnership, and it's a matter of strategy.
And why do you think, because you just said that's the most difficult thing probably for customer success managers to do, why do you think it's such a it sounds so easy now when you say it, right? You know, value proposition, of course the customer buys you to do something, to achieve something. Why do you think it's such a challenge then for customer success to put a metric to it, to actually define that word value?
Honestly, I scratch my head about this all the time, because in my head it is simple.
Yeah.
I mean, it's simple from a concept standpoint, right? It's simple from a even a framework standpoint. However, I think what gets in our way is that we look inwardly and we work in a siloed way a lot of the time. So, for example, when we think about things that the product team might be busy doing, they're not necessarily busy in most companies. They're not necessarily busy in proving that their product delivers value. They have other metrics like the number of features that they ship. They have, in some companies, adoption metrics, in reliability metrics. Every single department has their own internal metrics that they are solving for. The same for customer success, right? We have retention, we have adoption, we have churn, there's a ton of internal metrics that we track, and these are very, very important metrics. I'm not saying we should throw our internal metrics out, because they tell us how efficient we are at doing the job that our departments are tasked with doing. But we do need more cross-functional collaboration and what I call mission metrics, like how are we delivering on our mission and the promises that we're making. And that should be baked into the top metrics that we track as a business. And I think the moment that we can have those conversations, we are more able to work cross-functionally and find the answers for these questions that are pretty, let's say, first principles basic questions, but that everybody's too busy fixing their own turf before actually looking outwardly, looking at the customer. So I would say if you want to be truly customer centric, everybody says they're customer centric, right? I'm willing to bet that if you're in a company that has a set of values or has like a culture code or something like that, you're going to see the customer mentioned there in some way, shape, or form. But how many of us are actually putting the customer at the center of what we do? That's, I think, something that we need to get better at.
Exactly. And I guess it's also understanding that, creating this value for the customer is linked to so many internal metrics that we're actually looking at, right? So if the customer is seeing the value, they'll use the product more because they see that they get something out of it. If they see their return on investment, which is also value, they're more likely to renew, right? So I think it's also an understanding of those value things and creating value and measuring them link then in the end to your internal metrics that you are probably measured on. So I really like that link here. We have our first question, Daphne. Yay! Thank you, Sahil, for making the first question, making the big move. If one of my clients does not see the value and doesn't have the required trust assurance in our software, as what was promised to them is not being met, what does an account manager as CSM need to do to fix that? Love that question.
Yeah, I love that question because I think it's a very, very common thing. And I think we need to go back to what's the root cause, right? Because it could be multiple things. For example, we didn't meet the customer needs because our product just doesn't do that, right? We made a promise that we cannot deliver on. That's a very different problem than we haven't been able to deliver the value because the customer didn't put in the right resources to unlock, or the customer wasn't able to see value because we haven't taken them through a structured plan on how to unlock value. We don't understand what the value is. There's so many root causes. So my first advice for you, Sahil, is figure out why. Why hasn't the customer seen value with your product to this day? and then decide from that point onwards how you act based on that. So if it is a product gap, like the product just doesn't do this thing, there's only two things that you can do. You can advocate for the customer, right? You can document the use case, really truly understand what it is that they're trying to do, and go to the right product people internally and talk about that use case. It'll be bonus points and even better business case if you can find other customers that are trying to do this thing as well, right? So if you can say, like, it's not just this one customer, 30 customers want to do this. This is the total MRR that they pose into our business. So you can go and persuade the product team to build the thing that's missing. But the other path is, our product just doesn't do this. We're not a good fit for you, as we're never going to be able to meet that need for you, for your business. How critical is that? And if it is critical, are there integrations that can help? Can we build a solution that will solve that need? And again, if the answer is no, if it's like, we don't have an integration, we are not going to do this in the future, then they're just not the right customer. And I think I am, as a CS leader, and I've been managing teams for over a decade, I've never been upset by letting a customer that isn't the right customer out of their contract and let them move on, because it's the right thing to do, not just for the customer, but for the business as well, because the amount of resources that we pour into those customers that we can't solve for is resources we could be pouring into customers that can 10x their value with our business. So I would say, like, if that's a product thing, that's how I would go about it. If it's a matter of you sitting down and understanding what's the use case, how do we unlock it, how do we map the right resources, I would say a success plan is the best way for you to do that. It's never too late to reset a relationship with a success plan and say, hey, I know we're not delivering the value for you. Let me work with you to understand exactly what it is that you need to do and map to what we need to do inside the product. And let's put a plan together on how we can achieve that goal. I think that actually shows a lot of leadership from a CSM.
Yes, I love that. I love that. We also have another question which is quite linked to what Sahir was just asking from Anna, and that I think is a very important one. How would you establish KPIs for clients who are unsure about what they want or even are able to measure? So a lot of times what I've seen is that, you have a client, you onboard them, everything's going well, and you start to realize, hey, that person, when you onboard them, right, you see, oh, it's my champion, so it's my user, so they're going to use it, they're going to implement it internally. The decision maker has probably been somebody else making a decision to buy the software. And sometimes you're in contact mostly with those people that use the product, use it internally, but they struggle to put really KPIs into it. And that is quite challenging. So how would you go about that to make sure, hey, we also have a clear return on investment, a clear value here that is measured, right? That they can then transmit also internally, for example, to the bigger stakeholders, decision makers, management, and so on.
Yeah. And I think a success plan can be a huge help on that, because if you say, our goal is to increase our deal conversion rate by 20% by the end of the year, now you have a very measurable KPI that you can then go back to the customer and say, you've achieved this goal, or you haven't achieved this goal, but you're tracking in the right direction, right? We just need more time to get there, or it's actually getting worse. So what is happening here? So I think those measurable KPIs are really, really important.
Yes, definitely. And maybe if I can just add on this one, if that person that you're in contact with is not really good at return on investment, right? Because sometimes you're selling maybe to positions that are not used to buying software that often, or that are not used to having budget or selling it internally, then just a simple question on, hey, can we get the decision maker actually decided to buy this software just on the table, just to see what success looks like for you? Because then it's also good for that champion or for that user to understand, hey, I'm going to be successful with the software if these metrics are met. And I know that also now internally, and I know that my CSM will help me to achieve that. So I think that's also a good thing to get the right stakeholders on to the table, right?
Yeah, and I think to Anna's question on like customers that are unsure about what they want, I also think that there's an element of being opinionated as a business around the value that you deliver. Like I said, you have that legwork that you do with your product team and strategy to have a strong perspective. Here's the value that we bring to the world. And then you are the expert and you're bringing that to the customer, and you can tell them what they should be measuring, right? It's like, look, you bought our product, you want to achieve X goal. Here's the things that I think you should be measuring. Are you measuring them today? Is anybody reporting on that? Can you check internally in your business if they align with what you want to do? Bring back that feedback to me. Let's consolidate that into a success plan. So being opinionated about the value that you deliver and what are the industry standard metrics to be able to track it is important. And I always say to product teams, and I'm a recovering product manager, my master's is in product. I did some product work early in my career, and I think what is really, really important there is being able to track things inside your product, right? If you're making a promise to the market that you help them increase revenue, but you don't have a way of measuring that even by proxy, then you were in trouble. Because you can't prove that you're doing the things that you're doing, and you're going to have a really hard time telling customers the value of your product, convincing them to stay, showing ROI. So again, I think if it's a matter of not being able to actually get to the metrics inside your product, working with product collaboratively to find ways of reporting the metrics that are important to your customers is a really, really important thing.
Yes, I love that approach as well. We have a question from Jerome, and I think it goes a little bit a step before. So I'm taking these questions. We know what it's like. You have a lot on your plate, a lot of things to do, QBRs, etc., etc. What's the best way to bring this topic actually to the customer? What would your approach be if you would be a CSM nowadays with a lot of things to juggle and the customer also really being busy?
Yeah, I love that question because I think that there is a lot of fear from CSMs on how to approach this conversation, and I think we have to transform that fear and hesitancy into excitement. Because if you think about the role of a CSM is to be a trusted advisor, is to help the customer realize value. How can you do that if you don't know what the customer goals are? So the best way to approach this conversation would be in your first time having a conversation with the customer, saying to them, hey, my name is Jerome. I'm your CSM. I'm going to be working with you to help you achieve your goals. I want to spend 30 minutes with you documenting or validating. Maybe the sales team has already passed on some information, validating or understanding the goals that you have, the timelines for those goals, and how you're going to measure them. Like as simple as that, right? If you start with that conversation, you can start mapping. You can challenge the customer in some things, right? Like if the customer says like, look, my boss bought this tool, like I I was just told that I need to implement this process, I don't know. You can go back and you can say, good, that's a really important thing for us is to be able to understand how we add value to your business, for us to be able to tailor everything that we do, from your implementation to the calls that we're going to have during the life cycle of your account, all towards what you're trying to do. I want to be your partner. I want to be as helpful as I possibly can. So let's have this conversation. And if you don't have the answers, bring in the right point of contact, like Kara was saying, into the conversation. And also say to them, like, customers like you that I work with are usually interested in A, B, and C. Like, give them something to work from as well. So I think that's kind of like the best way is day one. But I know that that is not the state of most people's books of business. Like, if you never talk to a customer and about goals and KPIs, and you've been meeting them for 6 months, how do you bring that up then? I think it's never too late to reset, right? I always say I actually have a decision tree graph that I use. I publish all my content on like when to have an enterprise business review or quarterly business review. If you haven't had a goal conversation, don't have an enterprise business review, because what are you reviewing? Like
Yeah.
they're not reviewing anything meaningful for a business. So I would say any point, like it's a good time to reset that relationship. And I think what you can say like, especially now in October, which a lot of people are thinking about the new year, I think it's a good time for you to go and say, as you prepare for your next year and your strategy, I love to have 30 minutes with you where we can talk about what are the top priorities for your business, what are you trying to achieve, and I would love to build a plan with you for how we get there next year. So I think it's a good time to reframe this end of the year as an opportunity to understand what they're prioritizing for the following year.
Totally love that. So we have a lot of questions in here. I was reading through a little bit of them, but let me just sneak one question in between before I pick one. We have limited time as customer success managers, so we cannot be doing this for every customer, especially when we have a big book of business to manage, 50 to 120 accounts, whatever you want to name it. How would you go about that, creating value and measuring it for, let's say, more tech touch, low touch kind of customers? What would you recommend there?
Yeah, I love this question because anytime we talk about measuring value, we kind of end up going into the conversation of having conversations with customers. But I think that there is really effective ways of doing this on a product-led strategy, tech-led strategy. So a good example I like using is I signed up to ClassPass recently. I don't know if anybody here uses ClassPass, but basically ClassPass is a fitness class finder app where you can, you have a subscription and then you can use your subscription points to book classes anywhere in the world. I love it. It's great. When I first signed up to ClassPass and I was making my profile, one of the first things that they made me do was go through a set of questions to understand who I am. So it's like, Daphne, what's your goal? What's your fitness goal? And there was like, lose weight, gain muscle. There was a bunch, there was 4 or 5 options there that I could select from. How many times a week you work out? There was like a set of questions that I was asked so that they could profile me and understand what kind of customer I am, what is the value I'm looking for from this subscription, what to target me with, how to personalize my journey to the things that I am trying to do. And I think the B2C world does this really well. Like ClassPass is one example, but there are a ton of apps that do the same thing. We don't do that in B2B. Very rarely you come into a product and you get that flow of understanding your user before they get into the platform and then tailoring their journey. So I think that it's completely possible. It is more complex, of course, because we're talking about organizations versus individuals. However, I think we have to start. We have to start somewhere. And I think the way to start it is really understanding your use cases, asking people what metrics they want to track and the frequency of those metrics, asking them to input their targets into the system. All of those things can be done in the product. And I think we need to do better at that.
I totally love it. And then we're touching a little bit on the sales, post-sales, handover kind of thing, right? But I think also Carmen has a very interesting question. Let's get that up. What is the best way to understand our clients' satisfaction? We can send a CSAT survey or NPS, like we all know it, but it doesn't necessarily equate to success. It's just one part of gaining a deeper understanding. How does it look like in your strategy? Because it's also important. So we're touching a little bit on creating value, but obviously, there's also other metrics that, go into play when it comes to customer success. How do you treat them?
I have a complicated relationship with CSAT and NPS. First of all, let me start by saying, yes, they are important and interesting metrics, right? Especially NPS. Why they're important and interesting is because they give you a window into how your customers are feeling about the entire experience they have with your business, with your product. And it's a good benchmarking metric. Like the industry, you can benchmark yourself against other companies, see how you're doing. So I think they're good, valid metrics to track. The insights you can get from them are very, very interesting. Do I think customer success teams should be measured on those metrics? No. If you look at an NPS survey, what you find is that a lot of the information there is not to do with customer success. It's to do with the product, it's to do with the overall CX, with support. Everything that the customer is thinking about your brand will go there. So to measure the customer success team based on it, I think it's unfair. I think it's a company metric versus a team metric. Now, I think CSAT is very valid for teams like support, for example, because you are asking a question very specifically about one interaction. So, for example, how did the support rep that dealt with you right now, like 5 minutes ago, how did they do in that interaction? And you can get an understanding of how your support team, ticket by ticket, is working with customers. But I don't think that's a customer success metric. And I wouldn't want to measure my customer success team based on that. I think understanding the satisfaction, yes, is important, but satisfaction goes way beyond the CS team. It's an entire company metric.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. So I'm glad we have the same relationship with NPS and CSAT.
And let me just say one thing, actually. NPS is not related to whether a customer renews or not. And that is actually when I learned this, I was shocked, right? Because we put so much emphasis on NPS. But in fact, they are not correlated. What is more correlated is actually who responds. A response is more correlated to a renewal than the grade of the response, because it means your customer is engaged with your company and they wanted to see it getting better, or they're big advocates and they want to give their positive feedback. So answering the survey is more important than what you get in the survey. Of course, you're going to get insights, you're going to act on them. But I always found that a very interesting stat, that the NPS actually doesn't mean the customer is going to stay or not.
Definitely, totally agree with you. And it also depends on when you send it, right? So the timing can make a huge difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
So totally agree on that. Maybe let's go. So we have a lot of questions. First of all, thank you so much, guys. I'm overwhelmed with so many questions. I don't know if we will be able to answer all of them, but I'll try to pick the ones that I think also more correlate with the topic. So sorry for that if I haven't picked your ones. I want to just pick on Antonio ones, which I also think is quite interesting, because it taps a little bit on another part that we also just quickly discussed. How can I explain to the board that our aggressive growth strategy is leading to high churn due to acquiring bad fit customers, and that our customer success team can't effectively manage on ever expanding portfolio?
I love this question, Antonio. I think I tell you what has worked for me before when I was having this conversation. First of all, when a customer success leader comes in and says, we're acquiring a bunch of bad fit customers, they're not successful, it sounds whiny and complaining, right? So you can't just go with your feeling into this conversation. You need to come in with data, and the best data to prove your point, if your point is right. So you might look at your data and realize that maybe your point isn't right, but you want to look at what is the percentage of customers that is churning. Out of that percentage of churn, what is the percentage of customers that churned because of product limitations, things that we could not do? So that's your first metric that you want to see. And you want to see how much how many dollars have we lost in the last 6 months, 12 months, 3 months, whatever time frame you want to put. How many dollars have we lost in those customers? And then what I would do is do a profitability analysis of those customers. So I talked early in the conversation about the cost of acquiring customers. There is something else there. There's the cost of retaining customers, which is all of the money that we put in to try and retain that customer. So every time your CSM is having to do 10 calls to try and renew that customer because they're really unhappy and they're not a good fit for the product, that eats into your profitability. So you need to look at the cost of acquiring customers, the cost of retaining customers, and those two things to understand the profitability of that customer. In many cases, and that was true when I was having that conversation, was what we could see is that we weren't breaking even on those bad fit customers. For every $2 we invested, we're losing $1. And that was actually eating into our margin. And having that conversation purely from a financial standpoint, it's not to say we don't want to work with them, we're tired, they're difficult. Like, none of those sentiment things matter in this conversation. What matters here is look at us throwing money at acquisition, throwing resources at acquisition, throwing resources at trying to retain this customer. And in the end of the day, we're losing money. Like, that is how you convince the CEO, the board, even the sales team that this is a bad strategy. And your best friend here is the CFO. Like, you're not going to get the profitability metrics by yourself sitting there and doing your own spreadsheets. You're going to have to work with the CFO. And as you work with the CFO or the head of finance, whoever is that person in your company, they are going to be your best friend because they care about this. Profitability, operating margins, growth rates, like that's their world, and that's what they care about. And boards care about that too, right? If I'm an investor and I put $1 million in your business and I'm hearing that you're spending $5,000 to acquire a customer, but that customer is only bringing $3,000 to your business, so $2,000 are being lost, it's my money that you're losing. It's my money that you are using in a bad way. So your board is really, really going to care about that. So for me, the way to do this is through the financial numbers. You don't do this through sentiment. You don't do this through stories, although obviously you have to storytell this story, but you have to have the numbers in front of you. And I would say a team can't effectively manage an ever-expanding portfolio. That is your job. The job is to figure out how to make your department more effective. So I wouldn't bring that into the picture. I would focus on, like, here's the cost of those bad fit customers. This is why this strategy isn't working. We need to change this. And then think about your efficiencies, your growth strategy for your CS team separately from that conversation.
Yeah, I love that approach. And it's actually sales, right? So you're internally selling how a bad fit customer can actually create harm within your business, right? So I really love that approach to actually have numbers validated, make it clear, make it understandable for the decision maker, which would be the CFO probably. So really love that comment, Daphne. We have some more questions, and just picking the one from Paul, which I think is also quite interesting. It's the last question. How should you incentivize your CSMs to work on account developments instead of primarily focusing on low churn rates?
That's an interesting question. And I had like 10 questions for Paul before I could feel like I can really answer this question. What I would say is, like, if I'm in a business that has very low churn rates, which means, and I'm guessing what you mean low churn rates, like you're renewing most of your customers, right? Like that churn is not a problem in your business. That's how I understand it. If churn is not a problem in your business, then, well, first of all, congratulations. That's amazing. This is a really, really good position to be. And it shows that you have a well-oiled machine for value delivery. And I think the next level of that is helping customers to grow. So not just keep your customers in your business, but how can we grow them? And I think you used the word incentivization. The first thing that I think when we think about incentivization, we think about, like, what is the monetary incentives that we can give the team so that they are incentivized to put their attention in this place. So I think that there's a place for incentives, but I'm going to actually park that for a moment, because I heard something last week. I was in a leadership summit that HubSpot organized in Boston, and our CEO said something that really stayed with me, which was like, you can get 10% out of people when you focus on compliance, right? When you tell them, here's a process, you have to follow, it's your new job, here's your job description, I'm going to hold you accountable. Like, you can get 10% of people. But when you get commitment, you can get the extra 90% and really get their full potential. And commitment is about mindset. Commitment is about getting them to believe that that is the right thing to do. And I think as leaders, we sometimes can focus so much on the compliance, the incentive metrics, basically the operational side of change. and not focus on winning the hearts and minds of the people that need to do this work so that they believe that this is the right thing to do. And I think for me is about your mission, right? Why do you exist? What are you here to do? And can you get your CS team to really buy into the fact that helping your customers grow is in service of your mission? So it doesn't feel like that old car salesman, and they don't feel like, oh, they just want us to be sales reps. Because the reality, personally, this is my perspective, is that I don't want my CSMs to be sales reps. We have sales reps. What I want my CSMs to do is I want them to drive value, deliver results for customers, and position and nurture opportunities inside the account to the point that the customer is interested in growing with our business, that they believe on their next step. So thinking about those success plans and how do you keep pushing the customer to do more. That's what I want my CS team to do. And I think we can put incentives in place. We can put success qualified leads metrics in place. We can do all those things. But unless you win the hearts and the minds of the customer success team, that this is the right thing to do for the business, for the customer, then I don't think you're going to succeed.
Yeah, I love that approach. And then it's the same. I've said it to my team a couple of months ago, because also when we look at sales, they celebrate everything. Like they booked a meeting, they closed a deal, they did this and this and this. And I think we're really bad in customer success at celebrating, also showing our value internally, right? And I think also that recognition that you can get internally. Hey, this client was about to churn and I turned them around. So I retained them. Hey, I, created an upsell opportunity, cross-sell opportunity. I got a referral from our client. So we got an entry point. And I just feel like customer success doesn't really celebrate such things. So I always tell my team, nice, congratulations, celebrate it, spread the word out of there so everybody can see what kind of value you also bring to the company. And it's not just you and I in a private chat celebrating ourselves. So I think also that kind of recognition, and then seeing, hey, the other company seeing that I'm, doing a good job, is also very, very important here.
I love that. So true.
Perfect. So we are almost at the 1 hour. I think there's one question that's not really so much related to value, but I think it's also a very relevant one. I'm sure you have a good answer to this one, Daphne, which is the question from Gabrielle. She's asking, how can we initiate conversation with customers who are not responsive to your emails? And I believe anybody who's worked in customer success has had this.
Yeah. So I deal with this question so much with my teams and with CS folks that reach out to me. I think my perspective on this is that there are a few reasons why your customer isn't responding to you. Again, back to that kind of root cause analysis, right? The first thing that I like to think back is like, how persuasive is your message? I had a post on LinkedIn, I think earlier this year. I signed up for this product for my newsletter and my consulting business. And I did everything touchlessly, but I hit kind of like an upgrade level that I did. And then suddenly I got a message, like a two-liner that was basically like, I'm your CSM, let's book time. I'm like, no, I'm busy. Like, I'm not even going to respond to this message. Like, how are you positioning yourself to your customer? Like, they're not just going to book time because you're asking them for time. They're busy people like you. You're a busy person. So how are you writing those messages in a persuasive way? And I actually have a methodology that I call TAVU. And it's about tailoring your message to that customer specifically. You can't just copy and paste the same message over and over again and think you're going to have a good result from it. You're not. Then it has to be actionable. So you need to be able to tell them exactly what you want to do with them. Not just, I want to book a call, right? It's like, what do you want to talk about? Then they need to understand what's the value for them in that interaction, right? So like, again, going back, if you're capturing the customer's goals and early in the sales process inside your product, or even in your first conversation, you can tell them, I know you want to do A, B, and C. In this conversation, we're going to talk about how you can do that. Like, tie it back to what they want to do. And then urgency, get them to book that like literally today or tomorrow. Like, don't just give them a calendar link and say book whenever. Like, drive the urgency on why it's important to book ASAP. So like I use Tavu for like not just for customer messages, but also internally with my stakeholders internally. And it works really, really well. So that's the first thing I would do. Like, what is your message? Like, how are you writing to this person? Then the second thing is like, is this the right person to be writing to? Like, I've seen so many cases where you're writing to the person that's in the CRM without checking. Are they the right resource? Are they still in the company? Is that the role that they still have in that business? Who are the top users there? Like, am I really like, can I touch base with somebody else? So like, who is this person? Are you reaching out? Like, if you're going to send the same blasé message 10 times to the same person and it's not working, then you have to ask yourself, like, is this the right person? Is this the right message? But then my favorite advice, and we have a private chat here, and Dominic said the same thing, is pick up the bloody phone. Stop emailing people. If that's not working, if you're doing great messages to the right person and that's still not working, pick up the phone, call them. And this is like, people are afraid of like cold calls. It's not a cold call. They're your customer. They are paying you money. If you say like, hey, I'm Daphne, I'm the customer success manager for HubSpot, and you are a valued customer of ours. I know that you want to do A, B, and C, and I was hoping to book a call with you. Like, just call them. I get calls. I get cold calls even from products I don't use yet. And as long as they are tailored to me, like not the same, bog standard, I don't mind getting a cold call. I hope I don't get 1,000 cold calls now after I said that. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't, if it's valuable, I don't mind. So I think pick up the phone, get creative, go on LinkedIn if you need to, find the right person. And I'm sure you get some engagement from the right people.
And here we are, right? Talking again about value. So, and I think that's so important. And it's not just about, creating value for the customer and measuring it, but also making yourself valuable so the customer actually values you as a success manager and sees, hey, if I talk to Cara, I know it's going to be a good reason I need to talk to her, and not just, anything just to check in because she needs to book in a check-in meeting because she's measured on meetings. So I think that's very important. And by the way, if that person doesn't pick up the phone, call the headquarter and ask for the person. And you'll be surprised. A lot of customer success managers then think, oh, I'm going to call the headquarter and ask for the person. I'm going to be like really annoying. Well, if your message is really of value to the customer, then you won't be annoying because the customer will realize that it's important. So we've tried it out, and it actually also works, calling the headquarters. So you might want to try that out. So let me just quickly blaze through our chat here. I noticed that those contacts are more approachable if you explain that you do not want to sell. Yes, exactly. We also talked about that, but I think we're pretty much in the end, because there's one last thing we wanted to just quickly talk about, Daphne, which is, how do you see customer success evolving? I mean, we've talked about it. CACs are rising, retaining customer becomes more and more important. I think the importance of customer success is also becoming more important. We're in Europe, I feel we're still sort of the underdog. In the US, it's not quite that case, but we're getting there. But how do you see customer success evolving over the next year? Because I know you also do reports on that, which is quite exciting. But I'm very excited also to hear your view live today on what you think where we are heading to.
Yeah, I do every year. Well, every year. This is my second time doing this, but my intention is to do it every year. I have a report, a CS Trends report, and the survey is actually out right now, where I ask CS leaders, like, what are the challenges that they have? What are they investing on? What programs they want to implement? So I do that survey and I learn a lot from it. But here's a few thoughts that I haven't looked at the results of the survey just yet because it's still going. But first of all, I think that customer success as is, like, I add one person for every X many customers that I bring, that linear growth, that is going to end. That is not a sustainable way of growing the business. So I think we're going to see more and more technologies that help us scale better. And I think AI is going to have a big impact in here. I'm seeing a lot of AI co-pilots and agents already that are helping customer success teams do their job. Prepare for calls faster, deliver follow-ups faster. But I think that the potential of agents is just huge because they can do a full instead of huge. I think the potential of AI is huge. And I'm seeing more and more interest from CS teams on that. Then I think the other piece is that value. Like, I think a lot of companies build customer success teams without having that clear picture of value. And I think we're going to see more and more success teams measured on customer outcomes, measurable customer outcomes. I think that's gonna come in fast for us. I think we're going to see a lot of consolidation of tech tools. Right now, it's very hard for CSMs to get the right information about customers because there's the support tool, there's the CRM, there's the CSP, there's the product analytics tool. Like, all of these tools, I think we're going to see more and more consolidation. HubSpot obviously launched the customer success workspace inside the CRM, which will help a lot of teams go into the CRM instead of like having a separate tool. And I think that's the right move. I believe that, and more teams are going to do that. And I believe customer success managers are going to have to go up the value chain. All the things that they did in terms of, process management, in terms of looking at data to find the right information to go talk to customers, those things are going to get automated. So CSMs are going to have to go up in terms of their strategic mindset, business acumen to deliver value. So those are some of the things I think are going to happen.
Yes. I mean, I totally agree also on the consolidation of tools, right? And the struggle that we currently have with having everything at one place and not having really one source of truth. So yeah, very exciting. If you want to check out the report, where can people find it, and where can they also hand it maybe their submissions?
Yeah. If you go to thisisgrowth.media, you can find like the newsletter, the podcast, the report. You can find all in there. But if you want to follow me as well on LinkedIn, my LinkedIn is Daphne Casa Lopez. You can find me there. And I do daily posts on customer success. I've started doing videos. So there's a lot of good content that you can access.
Yeah, definitely agree on that. One of your favorite follows. Daphne, it was so good to have you here today, I think. And I've seen the chat. There's a lot of thank yous. And actually, people even got it at 6 a.m. So I'm glad that person got also a lot of new ideas how to prove with their team. Thank you so much for your time today. And yeah, I hope to see you around. And thank you to the listeners. And have a good rest of the week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.